All right, let's do some Mathity-Math. It says here, identify the roots of the quadratic. Okay, so here's our quadratic, and you want to find the roots of that. Now, I do think it's important before we start to kind of talk about this word roots. Okay, when you're told to find the roots of the quadratic, you could also see this question might say find the solutions of the quadratic or find the zeros of the quadratic. And essentially, all we're trying to identify here is where our quadratic parabola crosses the x-axis. That's what the roots are telling you. It's where it crosses the x-axis, okay? So when we look at this, to find the roots, you just identify your x value. I'm sorry, you isolate your x value. So right now, my x is not all alone. I need to isolate it, but I can't, or excuse me, it's not, because it's being squared. Okay, so we just have to follow the algebraic processes here that we know and kind of ask ourselves, well, what is the opposite of a square? Well, that would be the square root. So I can just take the square root of both sides. Okay, so now we're cooking. So now what we have is x is, and we're going to write plus minus, and I'll get into why we do that in a second, plus minus the square root of 9. You notice I didn't bring down the 2. When we're using the radical sign, if there's nothing here, it's just assumed it's a 2. So if that makes you feel better, that's there. Okay. Real quick clarification so we all know what we're doing here. When you have a square root, what this question is asking you says, hey, what number times itself exactly would give me 9? So if we looked at this, if you put in your calculator, you would find out it's 3 because 3 times 3 is 9. But I do think it's worthwhile to maybe break this down and kind of explore what's going to happen here. So if you think about this, the square root of 9 is actually the same as the square root of 3 times the square root of 3. Okay, and so that's the same thing twice. So if you have the same thing twice, that's the same as actually saying, well, that's the square root of 3 squared, okay? And we know a square root and a square cancel, so then those cancel, and that's actually why we get the answer 3. And now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to rewind this whole process and show you why we have a plus minus. You see, 3 times 3 is 9. We just established that. But what if I stuck in a negative and a negative? So negative 3 times negative 3, well, that's actually still 9. And negative 3 squared, a square root of negative 3 squared, well, those would cancel, and you'd be left with just a negative 3. So you see here, that's why there's a plus and minus, because your answer actually, the x could be 3, or the x could be negative 3. And that makes perfect sense because we have a quadratic, which is a curve, a parabola, and it will cross x twice. So that's why we have 2 solutions. So all that said, our roots of our quadratic are negative 3 and 3. Good job, and there you go. As always, go ahead and subscribe below if you want to be notified when I make new practice videos. And if you got any questions or comments or need clarifications, or if I did something wrong and you just have to let me know, please leave a comment below, and I'll do my best to respond. Okay, thank you.